Hello and welcome to the Friday Show. It's the Friday Show, which means no news because I was hanging out with stand-up listeners and subscribers late on Thursday night, and boy, did we have a great time. We had a little celebration for show number 600, which landed here this week. And we welcomed a whole bunch of special guests: Jared Yates Sexton, Wajid Ali, Dr. Jason Johnston, Essie Cupp, J.L. Govan, Bill B., Christian Finnegan stopped by, as well as Ophira Eisenberg, who are both on today's show. And who am I forgetting? It was awesome. We had a great time, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and I'm very thankful to all of the special guests who stopped by, as well as everybody, every listener and subscriber who joined us as well. Thank you very much. If you haven't signed up for a paid subscription, you should be like Trevor, who just did yesterday, and sign up now. StandUpWithPete.com, StandUpWithPete.com. And I hope to see you at next week's Hangout. Maybe we'll have more special guests. But right now, I'm going to get right to today's guests, which are, as mentioned, Ophira Eisenberg and Christian Finnegan coming up. And before that, the great Glenn Kirschner stopped by last night. Well, for an interview with me. We had a quick conversation about the latest issues and stories that he's covering. Of course, Glenn is an NBC, MSNBC legal analyst. He's a former 30-year federal prosecutor. He has a huge presence now on YouTube, where he makes videos pretty much every day. YouTube.com/Glenn Kirschner 2. He's also on Patreon, where he's doing very well, and very happy to have him joining us on today's show. Follow him on Twitter at Glenn Kirschner 2. Lots of legal issues to talk about with him. It's time for the Kirschner Report. Glenn Kirschner right now. He sounds great. He looks great. And there he is. And we're very happy he is there. It's Glenn Kirschner, and it's been too long, and I appreciate you joining me. How have you been? Nothing much to talk about lately.
Been good. Fighting for justice, looking for a little bit of hope on the horizon, getting out my binoculars, seeing if I can spot some.
Well, how good are your binoculars? How accurate are they usually? What do you see?
I see the law for the way I know it's supposed to be handled. So I'm often disappointed because they're really not moving out in a way that sort of meets the urgency of the moment. So that's frustrating. But, we've got some good developments. We're heading in the right direction. I just hope we get there in time, Pete.
Yeah. And when you say in time, do you think what does the timeline of the midterm election mean to you? If the House, if Democrats lose the House and all the power goes to Republicans, they're in charge of all the investigative committees. They're the chair of all the. I mean, how big of a deal is that, this election?
Yeah, it's a big deal politically and atmospherically. Now, I hasten to add that DOJ shouldn't be doing any business on the election cycle. We actually have rules in place that dictate we shouldn't be doing anything in the 60 days before an election to mess with an election. But what I will say, Pete, is that that's a quaint little Norman tradition that we have always followed. However, when you have insurrectionists running for re-election, I think maybe you need to set aside that quaint little norm and tradition, because I really don't we shouldn't give the insurrectionists an election holiday. We're going to be hands off for the 60 days before you try to get reelected and continue to destroy our democracy. And I really don't want to look back from the end of our republic and see America's headstone read, rest in peace, 1776 to 2022 or 2024. At least the Dems abided by norms and traditions. That will be little consolation, Pete.
Rest in peace. Thank you for being an institutionalist.
Yeah, institutionalist is a dirty word now, institutionalist.
I mean, it used to be something. I just heard your old friend Eric Holder basically referring to himself that way. He's got a new book out, and he's been doing a lot of interviews, and the question when it comes up about prosecuting Trump, he's always like, well, I'm an institutionalist, but for him, I think he's got to get it or something like that.
And institutions ought to prosecute criminal politicians. That's being an institutionalist.
Yeah. These hearings that are scheduled to come up in public, what can you tell us just about the process there and what we can expect? We've just seen these new subpoenas come down of Congressman Jim Jordan, and I'm not sure who else. I'm a little late to it, but what do we expected to see process when and what what's it going to look like?
I actually take Representative Jamie Raskin at his words that, we're going to be blown away at everything. They've talked to almost 1,000 witnesses. They've got countless documents and pieces of evidence. And I think we're going to see for the first time what Trump and company were really up to. And it will knock the constitutional wind out of us. The question is, to what end? And hopefully we will, be driven to the polls in numbers unlike anything we've ever seen, coupled, the revocation of women's constitutional privacy rights with what we're going to learn about January 6th. And if we don't go to the polls in historic numbers, shame on us. But, I'm really optimistic also because I don't know if we've talked about this, but the chief investigative counsel for the J6 committee, Tim Heaphy, is an old colleague of mine, longtime friend, and was probably one of the best RICO prosecutors I ever worked with. He and I handled the same RICO case together. And he has been, I can see his investigative fingerprints all over the way the January 6th committee has been proceeding. So I'm optimistic that they have collected up a batch of evidence that's going to be really important, both for the American people to see beginning on June 9th with the public hearings and for the Department of Justice to use all of that sworn testimony from those 1,000 witnesses. They can basically take it, present it to a grand jury, and have an indictment returned promptly. So I am optimistic moving forward, even though I'm frustrated as hell by the pace that has been set.
So you're saying if in that batch of evidence there's enough to what would be the process? Because the House doesn't have prosecutorial power, right? They're supposed to. The ideal case is they put on a case, and then the Department of Justice or what other jurisdiction would pick that up?
Yeah, the Department of Justice. They have been in the grand jury. We know they're in the grand jury investigating the insurrection and working their way up the ladder, albeit, again, too slowly in my estimation. But they can use all of the sworn committee testimony hearing materials, and they can use that as part of their grand jury investigation. And I assume they will. And then it's up to the Department of Justice to actually begin indicting insurrectionists and co-conspirators, which, and what we can't lose sight of, Pete, is a federal judge in California is on record in a written ruling saying by a preponderance of the evidence, that's a legal standard saying 51% of the evidence, Donald Trump and John Eastman committed 2 felony crimes. They committed the crime of conspiracy to defraud or commit offenses against the United States, and they committed the crime of obstructing an official proceeding, the certification of Joe Biden's win. A federal judge has announced that. So that can't be ignored, and that is a great springboard into prosecutions of these people.
You follow this really closely. You've got tons of videos that are informing us and dedicated to stuff. But what do you think in terms of going back to the batch of evidence? Who, if anybody, should be worried?
Oh, I did a video on a hub and spoke conspiracy where I literally and graphically set out everybody who should be worried. And, it's the Mark Meadows of the world. It's the Jeffrey Clark's of this sad, episode. It's the Mo Brooks. It's the Rudy Giuliani's. It's the Sidney Powell's. It's the Mike Flynn's. It's the Roger Stone's. It's the Steve Bannon's. It's all of the fake electors. It is Ginny Thomas and company for reaching out to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff to the president of the United States, and saying you need to reverse the election results. And then, I would even pull Clarence Thomas into it, though that's probably a bridge too far. But Pete, all we need to do is apply the dang law, right? When you see Supreme Court justices engage in misconduct, how about we just apply the dang law? And that's what we've gotten away from. And that's why I've been saying we created this monster. People get really angry at me when I say we. Well, let's look at where we are. We're at a place where the Supreme Court is about to claw back the constitutional privacy rights of women and force women to carry a child to term without their consent, right? And against their will. That's pretty dang immoral and despicable. But we've created this monster because we voted for the people who are in office who allowed this to happen. Maybe they didn't want it to happen. Maybe they fought against it, but they failed. We created this monster. What are we going to do about it? All we have to do, Pete, is apply the dang rule of law to address it. And thus far, we haven't.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, anybody who you saw after Roe v. Wade leak happened, you just saw so many people talking about butter emails, that people that did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton for any number of anything, for any reason. Well, guess what? Trump got 3 judges appointed. So, yeah.
And those judges lied in their zeal to be confirmed, and they need to be held accountable for that, Pete. I mean, look at Alito, who testified in his confirmation hearing. Basically, I'm going to paraphrase, you got nothing to worry about from me. Roe is settled precedent, stare decisis, entitled to respect. And then what he wrote, Pete, in his draft opinion, is Roe was egregiously wrong from the day it was decided. Mind you, it was decided before his confirmation hearing. And he said it was an abuse of judicial authority and it must be overruled. What does that tell us? He lied to the senators to get, maybe he used pretty words and he was slippery and slick, but he lied, as did Kavanaugh, as did Gorsuch, as did Amy Coney Barrett. And now what do? Well, we use the rule of law to investigate them for perjury, and we use the legislative branch of government to open impeachment inquiries. This is what legitimate government should be doing.
Well, I don't think there's any hope of either of those two things happening. In terms,
then we're not legitimate. We're not a legitimate government.
I think we, to some extent, knew that. I think we have to settle with the fact that maybe we aren't, because we're not going to be.
Never settle. Never settle. Never stop fighting. Never.
Certainly don't want to stop fighting, and agree with you on that. I'm not sure. I mean, you've got 5 daughters. I mean, you've been talking about this everywhere you can. What is this? What else does this mean? How do you see this playing out? They're not going to. I mean, the Supreme Court justices nobody's going to change their mind on this, and by June, I think it's fair to say.
Well, they might walk it back. I mean, listen, Alito was raked over the coals for the shallowness of his intellect and his reasoning, not to mention the misogyny of it all. But so I don't think the opinion will exist in its current form. I don't know if it will get watered down to trimesters, but they will probably basically do away with the federal constitutional privacy right of a woman to make her own choice. And then it gets kicked back to the states. And then what we're going to have is half of the states will outlaw it. Half of the states will not outlaw it. And it's going to be a foot race from jurisdiction to jurisdiction as to where women will, have to go to exercise their, what they previously enjoyed were their constitutional privacy rights.
A lot of people talking about kids today are going to be born, girls today are going to be born with fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. Do you think that's too extreme, or is that accurate?
No, just do the math. They have one less constitutional right. And Pete, we know they're not going to stop. Gay marriage is next. Yeah. Contraception is after that. And segregation or desegregation is coming.
You think that?
Absolutely. If they're going to have every reason, given their analysis, to try to attack Brown versus Board of Education and go back to Plessy versus Ferguson's separate but equal, because the Constitution says that's okay.
Well, I mean, could that mean that the Honorable Clarence Thomas would be invalidating his marriage to the Honorable Ginny Thomas?
Oh, he'd be happy to. He's a self-loathing human being.
You did a video. I mean, we already touched on that, but you have nothing but kind things to say about Ginny Thomas, right? Do you know Ginny Thomas?
No, nor do I want to know her. But,
weren't you at the
she's
wedding?
An insurrectionist. And, let's not forget, there's complicity there on both ends, right? Her best friend, Clarence Thomas, who she said, I'm keeping informed. I'm keeping him up to speed. And, of course, this is while the president is saying, I'm going to go to the Supreme Court and challenge the election results. The conflict is disgusting and despicable. But then there's disgust on the other end. She's telling Mark Meadows, chief of staff to the president of the United States, Mark, you know how I know the election was fraudulent? There are people right now being detained on barges off of Gitmo awaiting their sedition military tribunals. No, Mark Meadows doesn't say, Ginny, you're out to lunch. The hell are you and Clarence been smoking? He buys into it.
Yeah.
So there's conspiracy and complicity on both sides of Ginny Thomas.
People are trying to act like Mark Meadows was some kind of serious, operator. Go, well, that's a little bit too far fetched. I mean, did you see who was in the White House and what they were saying? You talking about Giuliani in a recent video, John Eastman, obviously. All these people were saying crazy things as well. Absolutely bizarre, crazy conspiracies. And Mark Meadows was there to let him in.
He was in the thick of it. And, John Eastman is the only guy who ever authored a legal memo. And then when it was exposed and he realized how treasonous it was, he said, and I quote, "Anybody who believed what I said in my memo is crazy." That's his defense.
Yeah. We've heard that defense more. I think Sydney, what's her name, said something similar, didn't you? Sydney Powell.
Yeah, nobody would believe these assertions. And Rudy says, I don't even bother investigating them before I say them.
You have been talking about all this on your YouTube channel. Everybody should go check it out. Real quick, you got a video about Elon Musk wanting Trump back on Twitter. What do you think of that? Everybody should go watch the video.
It's not surprising coming from Elon Musk. He and Trump are birds of a feather.
Yeah.
What really upsets me, though, is that Jim Jordan issued a threat to the Twitter board members that we want you to preserve all evidence as to why you are rejecting my boy Elon Musk's or trying to reject his bid offer. This is before it went through. We are commanding you to preserve it because we're going to investigate you when we take power after the midterms. That, Pete, is weaponizing the legislative process corruptly. And that is the kind of stuff that can't go on in government.
I had not heard that detail. For more, check out Glenn's YouTube channel right now, because justice matters, ladies and gentlemen. So great of you to allow me to ask you questions and press record, my friend. I love you and I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
I love you back, brother. Thanks.
There he goes, Glenn Kirschner, everybody. Follow him on Twitter. Subscribe to his page on YouTube. Support him on Patreon. And thank him for joining us here at Glenn Kirschner, too, everybody. He's always awesome, and today, no exception. Now it's time to get to my second two guests. They join me almost every Friday, and you can see the three of us performing in Fairfield, Connecticut at the Fairfield Comedy Club on June 11th. Go to the show notes for tickets and information. Ophira Eisenberg just out with a brand new comedy special. I hope you'll go get it and stream it. It's called Plant-Based Jokes. Christian's comedy special came out last year. It is awesome. He also has a new newsletter about music, which is so good. I can't recommend it more than I am. I don't know what to say. It's so good. New Music for Olds, it's called. newmusicforolds.substack.com. Definitely check it out. I think you're going to love it if you haven't already. And now it's time to do our conversation. Please go follow both them on Twitter and Instagram, where Ophira is really active, and support them. And that's it. Here we go. Now, boom. The recording has started. And here they are, two of my all-time favorite comedians and good friends, Christian Finnegan, Ophira Eisenberg. I am very happy when you're here because I love to connect with you. I don't talk with as many comedians as I used to. Do you guys feel like you talk to too many comedians still?
I mean, one is too many?
Yeah, one is too many. I was also going to say, like, not enough of the right ones.
How about this?
Yeah.
How about this? Let's start with something positive. When you walk, I'll put you right on the spot. When you walk into a club in New York or anywhere else, and you see a comedian who you like, who you're happy to see, who is that comedian? I won't ask you to trash anybody, but who is someone when you walk in, you're like, oh, I'm glad so-and-so is here?
Well, last night, actually, I bumped into a guy who I hadn't seen in probably 7 or 8 years, Joey Gay, who is
Joey Gay,
the nicest dude in the world. And he's kind of not really a full-time comic at this point in his life. I don't think I don't see him out doing stuff, but just one of those things where you just see somebody's face and it puts you in a good mood. Just a great dude, great comic, funny guy, nice person. So yeah,
and
that's all on my mind.
Isn't he, not to name drop on his behalf, but isn't he like best friends with Pete Davidson?
Yeah.
Oh, is he? Oh, I didn't know that.
And so
he would always go with him on the road. I assume and does still.
And the thing about Pete Davidson is that if you spend any time in New York, you know who that guy is. You have a relationship with him. You don't. I was always cool with him. But the thing about him that's different from every other comedian is that he's dating the most famous woman in the world. I feel like that's weird, in a weird thing for comedians to just, I don't know. A lot of guys get very well known and famous that we come up with. But he did it in a traditional way. And then also, he's like, I don't know. Who's yours?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have any negative feelings about Pete Davidson as a person. I probably met him 4 or 5 times before he got on SNL, and he always just seemed like a completely charming, affable young man.
Yeah.
But I don't know what weird pixie dust was sprinkled on him that he has had this life
unknown.
Yep.
That's I think that, and I may have said this on the podcast, I apologize if I have, but I feel like half the people think he's Chauncey Gardner, who is the main character in Being There, this sort of autistic dude who kind of stumbles into relevance and success. And the other half think he's Ferris Bueller, like the guy who gets away with it and everybody hates him just because he's so likable. Right. And they're both right.
That is a really interesting analysis.
I feel like there's like an upgrade thing going on. Like every time he dated someone, you were like, what? And then he was like, I can upgrade now. Like Ariana Grande set the groundwork. You know what I mean? Like it was.
Well, and it was just such a random assortment of people. Like
you don't go from Ariana,
like,
right? You don't go from Ariana Grande to like Kate from HR.
Who is yours, Ophira? Who do you like? Do you walk in and you see a comedian? Because we can joke and be negative about how there's so many just garbage people, and we've been doing it so long. Necessarily, you don't want to. Let me just get in here and do what I like to do. But who is it? What do you got?
I mean, to be fair, I would say a lot of people. But the first person when you said it comes to mind, because I love her energy and she's also hilarious on stage, is Caitlin Peluffo, who you might not know. I don't know. I see her all the time at the clubs. I've only known her in the last couple of years, but I love her act. But also, she's that person. She's warm. Like I like people that are warm. I know many stand-ups just in general off stage are cold and sort of off-puttish. And I have this thing too with adults that someone will say, "Oh, they're shy," and I'm like, "No, fuck you if you're shy over 30." Okay.
Oh,
I'm just saying that.
Fake it.
Don't make me do the work. Do not make me do the work. Manipulative.
You ever read that quote of what's his name? Charles Foster Kane. What's his name? Orson Welles, about Woody Allen talking about what an egotist he is. Talking about how what an egotist Woody Allen is. That some interview he was like, but Woody Allen is shy. He's like, no, he's not. He's arrogant. Like that sort of being reserved like that and thinking you're above like social interaction in sort of common niceties is a form of arrogance.
Yes. So everyone's awkward. I understand that. I'm awkward too. I just have my own way of hiding it. But I do love when I walk in and I see someone and we both are like, yay, warmth. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice way to start. I like that. And they're both great comedians. Caitlin Peluffo opened for me the same venue, like with a year apart. It must have been some weird lazy booker who just put us together. That's never happened. And to see, like, she was really like raw, but had a lot of talent, like the first time. And then after a year, she was just like most improved I'd ever seen. She's really, really funny and works really hard. So
she's on a trajectory to have a lot of success, I think, in the biz. She's very funny and she's hardworking and
and it's great to be around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. Yeah. Yes. I agree. I mean, I always enjoy seeing Caitlin.
Yeah. Anybody what is a person, by the way, that is great to be around? I love I want to unpack why you hate the shy, because I do too. It's the only people I get really uncomfortable with is I can't see, especially a grown adult. Like, what's your deal? Why aren't you talking?
What's your deal?
I don't believe it. Yeah. I just don't extricate yourself. If you're really uncomfortable, then leave. Then go somewhere and be by yourself. Yeah. Don't be weird amongst people.
But people have people have social anxiety, which is why they stay home and then they finally go out. And you're gonna treat them that way.
Yeah. Yes, I am.
but one step above that makes me even more pissed off is those people who and this is. It's both men and women. This is across the genders that people go, no, don't take them the wrong way. They have a very hard exterior, but once you get to know them, they're a total teddy bear. I'm like, don't care. Oh, really? There's a prize if I put in the effort? There's a prize?
Yeah, that's the way you describe dogs, not human beings. Like one of my dogs is like that.
I can't wait for a project of getting you to smile.
What is another way of saying, you hear that all the time, he's a little rough around the edges, but don't worry, he doesn't bite. When you get to know him, he's really got a soft core. What?
Yeah. It's silly.
I don't want to get to know him.
No.
It sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, right. No, again, it's just sort of like, I don't need a task.
Oh, by the way,
personality.
Jumping off a little bit from what Ophira is saying about the like, oh, wow, what a prize. I get your approval or whatever. That is why I really, truly hate the phrase appreciate you. I hate it so much. People have started saying this in the past 5 or 6 years. Like, instead of like, I got you some coffee. Oh, I appreciate that. They say, hey, I appreciate you. Oh, really? You appreciate me? Oh, I feel so honored. Thank you so much. It's like, oh, I finally earned your approval. I don't give two fucks. Say thank you for the thing I did, not that you have decided to dub me a worthwhile human being.
But, I got to say, I say all this, yet I am so hooked to people's approval. And obviously as stand-ups, this is nothing new to say, like, guess what? We get on stage alone and then ask for you to love us, like, groundbreaking insight here. But I was doing a fundraiser event last night that I was hosting for a great, a place that provides music and arts instruction for students all over New York. Amazing organization.
Who's booking that now?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Sorry. It was the 3rd Street Music School, and they had Shaggy performed on it, which was wild. And Natasha Bedingfield performed a song on it. So they had all this stuff. And of course, I'm hosting it. So, I've got the production people, I've got the Red of Show people, I've got all the production guys. And I had a moment where I was like, why am I trying to make sure the sound guy likes me? Like, it's important.
Yeah.
For us to have a working relationship. But I was like, this doesn't matter. Like, why?
It tells you that you're not some elite, you're not some sort of snobby talent. That you communicate with the blue collar workers that make our industry run. I mean, that's why.
That's true. Sometimes when you host, you go, am I talent or am I crew? Because hosting can really walk that line.
That is a really...
And you want to think of yourself as crew. You want the world to look at you as talent, but you want to think of yourself as crew.
Exactly.
That is such a great observation. It's also the opposite is also true. By the way, if someone gives you coffee, you give someone coffee and they say appreciate you, I feel like the best move in this case is to knock that coffee right the fuck out of their hand. Here you go.
And go, appreciate it again.
Do you still appreciate me?
The equivalent can be true about wanting to make people like you, but caring if in this case, the worst case, an asshole doesn't like you. That I don't know where I'm at with that. I think I've gotten mostly past it, but I know there's still a ting sometimes. Depends on who it is, I suppose. But that one person, even it obviously if it's comedy, if it's a stranger in the audience, it's not laughing. Like, why that one person? Everybody's talked about that. But
I'm judging you right now because you said a ting instead of a tinge. What is a ting?
Like a ting. Like a ting. Like that.
Am I one of those assholes whose approval shouldn't mean anything to you?
I definitely meant tinge. I definitely knew what happened. I definitely thought we would just keep going.
By the way, during a Zoom call I used the word variant instead of variable.
Oh.
I was like, that's just another variant. And everyone was like, what?
Yeah.
And then someone went variable. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
We all have them. We all have those little brain farts.
Well, especially with all the new scientific terminology that we've learned. Like watching some absolutely uneducated idiot make a confident point they think is a confident point while using the phrase herd immunity, it drives me just about mad. Or randomized controlled study, whatever. They don't know any of this stuff means, and they toss it out there, including me. I'm sure I've done it. That really gets my goat, gang.
I would like to reclaim the space in my brain that is reserved for words like fomites. I don't need those words
fair
anymore.
enough.
I don't want them.
Surely
there's information I've lost that would be better served.
So
one day I would like to use the word algorithm for something else other than followers and like, social media patterns. Like algorithm is a great word.
Yeah, it is a good word. I used to love the word fungible. That was one of my favorite words. And now NFTs have ruined it.
Yep.
I am delighted with this crypto crash, by the way. I know I shouldn't be, but every time I see a tweet or something about how it's tanking, I don't know. I have such intense feelings of Schadenfreude. I can't describe it.
Well, wait a second, because you know of some elderly person whose entire life savings is wrapped up in crypto. Like, who you feel
exactly,
bad for?
exactly. Clean out the herd. No.
if you're an elderly person and you're invested in crypto, you should have either known better or you got taken for a ride. I think those investors are probably younger, same with like NFTs and all these new financial pitfalls, places with the terrible endings that tools and instruments people are trying to make quick money on. They deserve.
Some of it is that I just don't understand it, and therefore I want it to fail. Because I'm left out. Yep. But also, and again, I don't mean to be like a guilt by association, and there's nothing that says that they should be the same people, but it does seem like a Venn diagram of like racists and assholes and crypto fanatics is almost an eclipse. It seems like that is a very tight pair of circles, and so hurting one hurts the other.
But don't you think you'd be safe in making that generalization about anybody who spends a lot of time with their investment portfolio, thinking about it and doing like all kinds of like, dude, what's in your, those conversations? I mean, just those guys in general. Isn't that true of all of them?
Yes, but there is a 21st century social media meme snark thing that is specific to the crypto world, that adds another layer of loathsomeness to it.
Right. Yeah, that's happening.
Yeah, but there's so many things like that I feel like now we're just a little bit more clear on, I just keep going back to freedom of speech. Anytime that anyone yells, and I know we've talked about this, freedom of speech, it's never the people that you're like, oh yeah, because you want everyone to speak. It is just totally someone with hate speech that wants that freedom.
Yes, we have that right now. Our Board of Education election is on Tuesday. As you know, I've been fully invested in it in every possible way, and went out on my first door knocking for any candidate ever, which was, I can't believe I haven't been doing that for years. It was super fun. But because I did it with
you seem like you'd be super good at that. I bet you would
love it.
Yeah.
Well, the people that you do it with, are often really cool people. So I suppose you could get someone who's annoying, but I'm saying someone who talks to people regularly and has to, not only just from the stage, but on your podcast or whatever. It feels to me that you'd be like designed in a lab to be good at door knocking. Thank you. Yes. I think, but you're saying I'm a Jehovah's Witness is what I'm hearing. So
exactly.
But the thing is,
no, you are gregarious and charming.
You're charming and you're engaging and you actually listen to people and you care what they have to say and you're not a jerk. Like all the reasons that I'd be terrible at it is why you'd be good at it.
So thank you for that. What was I thinking of? Why did I bring up the BOE campaign?
We were talking about crypto and how...
free speech.
Free speech. Yes. Well, let me just ask you this. This is what I definitely want to ask you both. This week, news broke that Elon Musk, if he ended up getting Twitter, which he might not, because I guess his portfolio is tanking, that he would give Donald Trump his Twitter back. And I mean, besides Trump, we don't have to necessarily even talk about his impact on social media, but just the idea, like I am 100%, and I'm open to be convinced otherwise, of censoring people that can get a mob to attack people in a moment's notice. Like, I think that's really dangerous. I'm not sure why that's not yelling fire in a crowded room, but I'm no scholar on speech.
Well, again, there's a difference between censorship and moderation. Those are two different terms. And so Twitter is not censoring anyone. They're moderating their own private platform. Sorry, Ophira was going to say something smart, and I interrupted.
I was just going to say, if like, let's just define a mob. Let's say over 4 people. Then yes, you should be. I just feel like sometimes that's what's missing. It's just like people are like, well, what is a mob? All right, fine. You want me to get specific on it? If you can convince over 4 people to engage and do something hateful, on there you go, mob.
Yes, anything from January 6th to Improv Everywhere should be stopped. And banned immediately.
I've said that so often. Nobody listens.
I just think
Improv Everywhere.
I'm terrified if he were to get his Twitter back. And he said he would. I'm never going back. He started his own thing and hired Devin Nunes, quick Congress to go run it, and now that's tanking. Like everything he touches dies. Who said that? Rick Wilson or somebody else before? I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's Rick Wilson.
But I mean, I'm terrified of him getting Twitter back. But,
I mean, I'm not the only person to have made this observation, so I don't claim any, unique insight. But, the whole idea, and this is shown over and over and over again, is that these social media knockoffs, these conservative social media sites cannot work because it's like vampires deciding to swear off human bodies. They can't exist. They cannot exist without people to torment and people to aggrieve and to annoy. That's their lifeblood. And so put them all in a room together and they have nothing to say to each other. Because all they do is piss people off and entertain their friends by pissing people off.
That is a great,
of course they come crawling back.
That is a great observation I have not heard anybody make, and it's so right. Their lifeblood is
owning the libs. That's it.
Yeah. Or not even liberal tears, just being confrontational, just being an asshole. I mean, Did you guys see Lori Kilmartin on Msnbc this week and what happened with her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've only seen the tweets about it, but I didn't actually see the segment itself.
You got to watch it because it was very similar. I told her to Stephen Colbert performing at the White House Correspondents' Dinner or any other situation where you're performing for another audience that isn't there. She wasn't doing the jokes for the people on the panel or the people watching. She was doing them for the rest of us, for people who appreciated comedy, for people who wanted to ridicule those panels, whatever. They were so out of place. She was the only one laughing at her own stuff. Everybody else was horrified by it. It's amazing. I think I'm just going to have to play it when we're done here. But the attacks that she is getting, for these jokes about abortion and wanting to abort people, it's just, she's sharing it. I love it when people share. I mean, her entire email box is just filled with horror.
Yeah.
And she keeps sharing it.
And I also love the people think that they're trying to get her by finding her old blog entries about her baby when she had her son that she was referring to as Kill Baby. And people are like, see, she's talking about aborting her own son. It's like, or maybe her name is Kilmartin and the first syllable of her last name is Kill. So Kill Baby, Kilmartin baby. Like it's not. It's so, but just the people being like, aha, we got you. And even if it was Kill, Kill, it would still be hilarious.
Oh, it's so great. I've been really enjoying that. Have you guys been paying much attention to the fallout on the Supreme Court decision? Are you engaged in that? Have you avoided it this week? Ophira? I've
only been asked about it 3,000 times.
How does
and every
that
time.
come? How does by people in media type things, or like how are you being asked about so much by who?
So here's just a strange thing I feel, which is Canadians. My Canadian people are talking about it, and I know it's from a couple different places. One is the standard, like we read about this thing or we heard about this thing that's happening in the United States. Wow. How crazy is that? Crazy Americans. There's that level. Then there is the other level of, Canada wouldn't do that. Or is Canada not that far behind? Because of the way things kind of flow.
Yeah, but how do things flow northward like this? The culture war, I know it's there on the fringes for sure. In the rural areas with religious folks, but
Well,
So, like, would you say the culture war in Canada now is like America was 10 years ago? Or
maybe. Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't have my feet on the ground there, so I'm also looking at through the lens of the news I get, and then some anecdotal, the conversations I have with people. But it does seem to me, the thing that freaks me out is if you were to look at it like that, Christian, then you want to say to these people, stop. You want to say to everyone, like, stop pretending it's not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. Like, act now. Like, you want to warn them.
Yeah. Well,
like, no. This voice that you're hearing that is yelling and hateful and getting stronger, that's going to get louder. Because
there's a woman who, there's a woman named Michelle Wooker who I knew in a former life back when I used to work in publishing. And I haven't read her book, so I don't want to, she's written a few books, but she has a book called The Gray Rhino. And the general premise is that sometimes things, in climate change being the ultimate example, sometimes you see a giant rhinoceros. It's kind of a play on elephant in the room, the sort of thing that people ignore. It's like sometimes you see this rhinoceros charging at you, and all you can do is pretend it's not. Like it's too big and it's too ugly to deal with, and all you do is just like, whoa, what's over here? And even though this thing is like coming at you.
Well, and to have something that you counted on being taken away, right? Like that's the thing where it's just like, it is really, for Canadians, so much of the mentality is around these sort of, and I guess you could say Americans too, but around this idea of like, oh, we uphold these kind of values, we believe in this kind of these rights and equality, and for that to be like, or do you?
I do feel, however, it is such a different situation because abortion touches on healthcare, and Canada has universal healthcare. So even if you're living in poverty, women are getting access to healthcare, and which is a huge part of the issue here in the U.S., much less education. I mean, now we're not, the culture war has really moved fast when it comes to sexual orientation and the whole, don't say gay and all of that. And in my town,
oh my goodness.
And my town, it's like the comments are, we should not be talking about sexual education. That's not, not for school. And I'm like, what? These are the same.
Well, it becomes a ball rolling downhill.
Yeah.
And it starts picking up steam, and people who, the sort of bad actors, understand that they have the wind at their back. And then, what people console themselves with is that eventually they overreach and people recoil. And, I think that there's probably some truth to that, but it happens a decade later. It doesn't happen like all of a sudden the midterms are going to all of a sudden go the Democrats' way because necessarily, I hope that's true, but it's like usually when overreach happens and the pendulum swings back in the other way, it's because awful fucking things have happened in the interim.
Right.
Great point. Yeah. The thing that pisses me off the most is about the abortion fight and it happened all week and it's been happening forever, is Republican leaders and pundits like the stupid governor of Texas saying that the Democrats or people that are pro-abortion or pro-choice want to kill babies. We kill babies in the third trimester, and you don't have any time to make the argument like, these are women who wanted kids. The kid's going to die. They're going to die. The kid's severely deformed. Like, ask any doctor who's ever delivered a baby. Like, this is not a thing that is happening. That's the one that just like, I light up at that. Like, nobody's killing their kid at the end of these people that are like, I'm pro-choice, but these third trimester abortions, that's wrong. I'm like, you're not against that? I'm like, no. Who's making that choice? Ask them.
Yeah.
No, nobody wants to make that choice.
It's like being against pixies or fairy dust. It's like you've made up something to rail against. There's a complete straw man.
Oh, it kills me.
Yeah. No. I've known women who have had to go through a late in their pregnancy termination because something. Basically the baby was not going to make it through a delivery or a massive and some sort of genetic problem, etc. Stillbirths. This ruins women's lives.
But they act they really act like you're like 8.5 months pregnant and you're like, the cost of college.
Ruins. Yeah, right. They're like, I changed my mind. I want a dog.
Yeah, I didn't get the crib. My Amazon crib wasn't going to be delivered on time.
Late.
So
my crib is late.
Devastating. like, and then of course, there's nothing ever waiting for you on the other side to help.
Right.
Like it does. That's like what always kills me. It's like you do or you don't. Fine. Like I am, of course, I can't even think of the percentage I am over 1,000 to make this point pro-choice. But there's just nothing waiting for you on the other side to help out. Nothing. Zero.
I support aborting a fetus when you find out it's not the gender you hoped for.
I mean, that's just logical. I mean, you know, how are you going to pass on your family name? You know, I mean,
when I found out exactly
the inheritance,
that's
land.
Exactly what happened.
Then you got to pay a dowry. Ugh, who wants that?
Dowry.
I got to find a local magistrate to try to marry.
We're not giving up this mule.
When we found out we were having a girl, I was so disappointed. And Val's like, I can't believe that you're upset. What is wrong? I'm like, the Dominic name is going to die. And she said, it should.
This is what, when we found we're having a boy, I mean, actually we didn't find out, but we kind of figured it out. And then they were like, it's a boy. And we were like, yeah, we know. And I just slapped my name right on that kid's name.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Why not?
They're like, what's his name? And I was like, Lucas Eisenberg. And my husband was like, Eisenberg Bayless. I was like, right. Eisenberg Bayless.
We all know it's going to end up Eisenberg. Come on.
Yeah,
Let's let him choose.
It's a weird thing to be caught up with the name, with the legacy idea somehow.
Legacy.
That's a very
name, and everyone just changes names now too. That is easier. It used to be like, so I think it's still a process, but it used to seem like this insurmountable process to change your name. You would hear people who have typos on their birth certificates and they'd be like, it took me 20 years.
It's actually been a problem for me my whole life, because my full name is Fletcher Christian Finnegan, but from a very, when I was a little kid, I technically was, my dad was, I think I was technically an employee of his company for tax purposes or something. And so it went down as Christian.
No, something. You can't just lay that out and then walk away.
The statute of limitations is expired. No, I'm just saying there were some, like when I got a social security card, like when I was young, it's like everything was under F. Christian Finnegan my entire life. And then almost like overnight after 9/11, that became a huge problem of me having certain forms that said Christian Finnegan, some forms that said Fletcher Finnegan, like that. It's in terms of like passports and my driver's license has been like a huge annoyance my entire life.
Well, that and your affinity for Al Qaeda's ideology, I think, is probably
that has also been an issue. Yes.
But just for the driver's license.
Oh, he's pointing out
pilot's license.
Pilot license was a breeze.
I just recall Christian so often saying, I know everybody thinks all these terrible things about Al Qaeda, but just hold on for a second. And then people will be like, what are you talking about, dude?
Nobody ever says the good things.
Right. You did.
We got to teach both sides of the controversy.
Okay. So
I got to say, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was on CBC Radio, shout out to Canadians, earlier this week because they wanted to talk about the role of comedy right now, just with like what has happened with the slapping and then Dave Chappelle being attacked and what's the line being drawn. And I sort of misspoke a little bit because I said, I just think the context in which people are coming to see comedians, like you have to look at these people and go, I can't, what am I, like, this is comedy. These people are not politicians or journalists. And the host was like, not to say that politicians and journalists should be slapped. And I was like, oh no, that's going to be isolated. And then it's going to be put out there and people are going to like say, I think journalists and politicians should be slapped.
Well,
when at the very worst, you think it's debatable.
What did they say? That's what did they say?
It's always the thing.
If they don't want to get slapped, they wouldn't say offensive things, is my opinion.
But I was just thinking about how, just talking about your name change, how technology allows everything to be isolated and taken out of context. And we're dealing with that all the time. Yeah.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you guys is the best thing in your life right now. The best thing in your life right now, a thing you're watching, a thing you're doing, a thing that happened, a thing you're looking forward to. It could be anything. And also do want to get an update, Christian, on your exercise regime. You said on Twitter a week or so ago You made an announcement.
That is not the best thing in my life right now.
You wrote, I have officially exhausted all the alternatives and will now exercise. It's truly sad. It's come to this.
That was that particular day.
Oh, okay.
I had been really good. No, I had been really good about doing yoga 6 days a week since the beginning of the year.
Wow.
I mean, my crappy version of it. But the last couple, since Amsterdam, I've kind of fallen off. Vacations will have a way of doing that. It screws up with your schedule. Yep. And then when you get back, you're like, well, I can't just go back to doing the things now I have to live different. That's my nonsense. So I'm trying to get back on the yoga, on the downward dog, as they say. All
right.
I would say the best thing in my life right now is the weather. My wife and I have a little house upstate, and we were just there for a few days, and we were planting flowers and whatnot. Oh. And she was planting flowers and telling me what to do, which is the way it should be because I don't garden. But it's the perfect time of year to be sitting outside where it's not too hot, but you can actually just be outside. I love seeing my dogs just laying in the sun. Like, that's the best thing in my life right now.
I love that. It moves fast, this prime temperature, which I agree with. So
3.5 weeks long, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you acknowledged it. Ophira, what is the best thing in your life right now?
Okay, I'm going to go for, you did heartfelt at the end there, but I will say I guess a career thing. I don't know if this is a career thing, but I put out that special, plant-based jokes, which we can talk about more at some point. But I just noticed that it's got 25,000 views after 10 days. And I feel that made me happy. That's just amazing. Made me happy to put something out there. I mean, you see numbers. Sometimes, you put something out there and you just have no idea if anyone's seeing it, responding to it, reading it, whatever. So it just feels like, it was a thing to put out there. So when you're like, oh, people are watching it, it feels like, well, it wasn't for nothing.
Yeah. No, that's great.
That's awesome. And people should go get it.
Just to
dream it. Watch it.
Dream it.
If you haven't already, it's on 800 Pound Gorilla Records. You can get it, but just go to Ophira's YouTube page. What else can I say? There's links in the show notes to it as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
On the other side of something nice, my husband and I have started doing yoga just on the TV. He's been doing it every night. I go out and work sometimes. But I do it when I'm home. And I was like, why haven't we always done it? It sets you up for a much better sleep as well.
Oh, 2 endorsements of yoga, and I'll third it, even though I haven't been doing it for a while, but I need to be. That's awesome. All right.
What's the best thing in your life, Pete?
Yeah.
Oh, I think being connected to all these people and this campaign has been really inspiring. If we lose on Tuesday night, it'll be the worst thing. If we win, it'll be literally the best thing. Really, I'm to be so involved in a campaign. Mostly in my career, I've been talking about them, and so it's just great. It feels really great.
What does your gut tell you? What does your gut tell you?
It's just so hard to know because it's like there's no. The BOE election, it's all about turnout. My gut tells me that we have a lot more people doing the traditional work to turn the vote out. So I would think that matters. But I also, you just hope that the people that we're supporting are decent people. And I think the other people are not. They're really not. And so you hope, and it's pretty transparent that they're not. They're very open. They talk at BOE meetings, they yell, they're divisive. And you kind of, it's like the Trump thing. It's like, wait, how can anybody support such an asshole? Forget politics. He's a mean son of a bitch. He's a ruthless, dishonest, divisive, and you're like, so it's disheartening when people see someone bully someone in public and I'm like, yeah, you're a good guy. Well, I'll support you. That's tough.
Yeah.
But
right.
So yeah, that's it. And Christian's weather comment. Me too. I've been out nonstop.
Oh yeah.
Haven't gotten nearly as much work done in front of this screen because it's so nice outside. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which,
time to rip the roof off that shed.
Oh, yes. I need a skylight. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. As always, I hope you have an awesome weekend, and I hope everybody will be seeing us in Fairfield, Connecticut, which there's links. Fairfield Comedy Club. That's coming up.
It's on sale.
What's that?
It's on sale.
It's on sale now, Saturday, June 11th, folks. 2 shows. So come on out to that. I'm really looking forward to any time I'm also in person with you guys. Thank you.
Bye, Peter.
Bye-bye.
Kate.
Okay, well, there they go, and that is today's show. Please check out our show in Connecticut if you're around this area, June 11th, and go follow and support Christian and Ophira. Check out Ophira's new comedy special this weekend. How about that? 25,000 views already. Plant-based jokes. Go check it out now. Support Christian as well with his newsletter. Watch his special. And that's it. Thank you to Glenn Kirschner. Always awesome. And thank you to you, all those of you that hung out. Sorry I got this up a little late today, if anybody's paying attention. But I cannot do it without your support. So thank you guys very much. Have an awesome weekend. If I don't hear from you or talk to you, email me your vitamin N pictures if you get out. standupwithpete@gmail.com. You guys have been doing pretty good with that this week. Thank you. Keep them coming. I share them with all the subscribers. Every day I share a vitamin N picture, so send that over. Okay, stop talking, Pete. Have a good one. Love you guys. Be the change you want to see. Bye-bye.
They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.